Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So, Dragon, you know what time it is? It is the end of February. We have basically a full 28 days in the history books. So we're going to be doing the monthly emulation news roundup. And even though we didn't get as many updates to emulators in February as we did in January, some of the updates that we actually did get were some of the most fundamentally large ones I've seen in maybe the last 6 or 12 months. So it's definitely going to be fun to talk about, because emulation is always getting better, and it's really why retro gaming is making a comeback, especially with more modern audiences. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But straight off the top, we have the Vulkan shader cache in Azahar. It was previewed and now it is out, and you even get some texture filtering on Vulkan as well. And this is definitely something that is going to make a fundamental difference to your 3D emulation moving forward, because I know everyone gets slightly annoyed, myself included, even though it just was a technological limitation when shaders are caching in the background and you end up with hitching in your game. Obviously, once you play the game once, that actual hitching is going to go away because the shader cache will exist, but sometimes you don't want to have to play through an entire game just to have a smoother experience moving forward. The faster the CPU you have, the less hitching you're going to get, but there is no such thing as a hitch-free experience on Azahar before the shader caches. Now, I haven't really seen any quote-unquote shader cache repositories yet, but I feel like in the next 6 to 12 months you're going to see websites pop up where you can go ahead and grab the correct caches for your hardware, because they are kind of GPU manufacturer dependent in some instances, so you can pop them into the shader cache folder on Azahar and get a smooth experience playing the game the first time, so long as you're not bringing a potato to the party. Because honestly, Azahar does a great job of keeping spec requirements low, so if you have something that would basically be able to masquerade as a quote-unquote PC, you should be pretty good at being able to run it. And this is definitely a big improvement, even if the best thing were the budgies on top of the laptop. And it's one of those things, I love developers that give previews as to what's coming early, and this was definitely something that not many people, when they saw the photo, were able to understand. And even though I don't understand 100% of the code, I could tell we were talking about shader caches on the Vulkan side of things. And again, this is just going to make 3DS emulation that much better, because I 100% agree, when it is hitching trying to actually render those caches and get them ready, it can be slightly annoying, but it is just, again, how things used to work. But that's what you're going to see in 2026 and beyond, emulation that works really well, just getting more and more improvements as time goes on. Because it's one of those things, emulation is never going to die no matter what Nintendo says, it's just going to keep getting better. And that means all of us are going to win. Just being able to sit down, use something like Azahar, pop the games up to 4K internal ring resolution, be able to play them smoothly. That is definitely a world I want to live in, and it is now a world that you can live in. It's still early days, it's going to keep getting better, but damn it, I love it already. Now, maybe my favorite thing of the month, but I put it second just because I've talked about it twice in recent memory on the channel. It is the Dolphin emulator, bringing in the Triforce branch internally into mainline Dolphin, allowing you to emulate basically almost all of the Nintendo Triforce arcade board games in Dolphin in and of itself. If you didn't watch those videos and you're not familiar, Triforce is just basically a GameCube in a box with Namco and Sega's involvement, hence the Triforce, where there was actually arcade games based upon the GameCube hardware. And the best part is there are some exclusives, including Mario Kart Arcade GP and GP2, and F-Zero AX, which is different than F-Zero GX. And before you leave the comment down below saying, well, you can unlock AX and GX with some Game Shark codes, yes you can, but it isn't still 100% the same. And honestly, I totally understand that the fork of Dolphin that used Triforce and allowed it to run did exist, but I will tell you right now, basically 9 out of 10 people that tried to get that running were never successful. Now with the new version of Dolphin incorporating this Triforce emulation in, I would say maybe 7 out of 10 people with a tutorial are able to get things going, and the 3 people that are failing are basically just finding bad files out there, because it is something that always has to be dealt with. But honestly, this is hardware, and these are games that absolutely deserve preservation, and preservation in a main branch of a very good emulator. And I would say Dolphin is up there with DuckStation as well as PCSX2 for just absolutely outstanding emulators that do everything you want, nothing more and nothing less, and are extremely easy to use. And again, getting these games working easier is just a massive win for emulation and video game preservation in general. And this is why I really feel like why retro gaming is making a comeback in maybe some of the younger generation, because they've heard of these games before, but honestly they're probably not going out and trying to find a fork of an emulator and then trying to understand exactly how to set it up. So if you do need a Dolphin Triforce emulation tutorial or Dolphin emulation Triforce guide, you will find it on my channel. Just look at the playlist. And the number one thing I love about the Dolphin emulator team is they write absolutely comprehensive notes on every single new release and every single new feature, so you will see this link in the description below as well. Trust me, read it. It is a very fun technical demonstration and description of how these things get made. And the best part is F-Zero AX is an 11 out of 10 game, and it is going to be fun for you to play. Let's do one soundtrack sample just so you can hear what it sounds like, and I'll be right back. I mean, even though the Triforce library isn't massive, it has some fun exclusives, and a Japanese baseball game for arcades, definitely 10 out of 10 in my book. And if you aren't a fan of baseball, of course we have other sports represented as well, because don't forget, Sega had a lot of involvement in the Triforce. So Virtual Striker 4 version 2006, that is absolutely another banger of a game, and one that I know a lot of people were excited about. If you leave me a comment down below and you tell me, have you tried out Triforce Emulation yet on Dolphin? It is still in a nightly build, not the main branch, but I'll definitely update you when it is. Now moving over to something that I am putting in the emulation video for the month, this is talking about RexGlue, the new Xbox 360 static recompilation tool, and that is because it is statically recompiling the PowerPC code for the actual game code and then moving that over to C++ for modern CPUs to be able to understand, but everything else being done under the hood, and this is just actually emulation here, not using RexGlue, is done with Xenia. Therefore, it's basically hybrid emulation where it is just statically recompiling the game code, but everything else, audio, video, things such as that, are still being used on a Xenia backend, which is going to be very interesting to see moving forward, because we have to remember that Xenia is not a finished emulator, so any issues Xenia has in the audio or video department would be moving right over to RexGlue unless they improve them in and of themselves. Now it's one of those things, people that are decompiling or recompiling games, in this instance using the static recomp tool, could go in and try to patch Xenia to get those bugs fixed just for the particular games they're trying to recompile, and then those open source codes in GitHub could be used by the Xenia developers to improve their emulation as well, so it could kind of become a symbiotic relationship. Is that what's going to happen? I have absolutely no idea. We're just going to have to wait and see. But I did run a video on the Ninja Gaiden 2 recap where it is actually showing signs of life, and if you want to watch that one, if I remember, and I usually don't, I will leave a link in the description below. Now again, this isn't pure emulation, but it is more emulation than recompilation, and that's why I am putting it here. I don't think that there's anything quote-unquote wrong with that. There's more than one side to a coin. We can do decomps and PC ports, we can do static recomps, and we can do static recomps that actually utilize some software emulation underlying everything else as well. So it really is interesting, and it's going to be fun to see how this progresses moving forward, because it is kind of a quote-unquote new way to actually take a look at how these things are done and maybe get more games running a little bit more quickly. But of course, if you're just compiling the actual game code and not the underlying video or audio, or having any sort of assets or resources in their engines to be able to pivot over the graphics outside of software emulation, it is going to be more limited than a pure PC port or a pure static recomp. So definitely keep that in mind, but it is some emulation news and it is quite interesting. I'll be very interested to see where it goes next. Now moving over to JGeneiss, a video I have made but not yet found a place to show it because there's been so much news lately. This is basically kind of like Ares or Medifem when it comes to being a multi-system emulator, and it got updated in February as well. It does stuff like Sega Genesis, Sega CD, Master System, and Game Gear, and it also incorporated Game Boy Advance this month as well. And that definitely is something exciting, because the more emulators we have out there, the better. And it is one of those things, trying to schedule for this channel can be an absolute pain in the ass sometimes. I've had this thing ready to show twice, and then news comes up that I know more people are going to be interested in, so I kind of keep pushing this video back and back. But you leave me a comment down below and you tell me, have you even heard of JGeneiss before as far as emulators are concerned, or no? I would be very curious, because again, these systems have some incredible games on them, and it is fun to have more than one way to play them. Do all of these systems emulate on other emulators? Absolutely, but don't forget every single emulation developer and team does things slightly differently, and the more emulators out there, the more people are learning about the hardware, the more accuracy we're going to get and the better developments. So even though if something is retreading territory that's already been tread once, it still benefits the entirety of the retro gaming community and the retro game emulation community. So I will have a video on JGeneiss very shortly to explain more of what it does, but I did leave a link in the description below as well so you understand it. But you will see here the list of emulators it has: Genesis, Sega CD, 32X, Master System, Game Gear, NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy and Game Boy Color, and now Game Boy Advance as well, which is a pretty damn comprehensive list if you ask me. But honestly, my favorite evolution of the month has got to be Triforce being brought into the main Dolphin branch, being able to emulate some games in the arcades that people didn't even really know existed. But leave me a comment down below and you tell me what your favorite improvement was this month. I would be curious. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.